Here it goes. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Enlightening Your Way. I'm your host, Nancy Lombardo. We are airing live simultaneously on blogtalkradio.com and Lilydale Radio, and of course here on the Lilydale Assembly official Facebook page. I am a full-time resident here at Lilydale, New York. I'm a spiritualist, interfaith minister, and healer. I'm also the president of the Church of Living Spirit, which is an independent spiritualist church here in Lilydale. I'm also a military veteran and retired police detective with a combined 32 years law enforcement. I'm a group fitness instructor and yoga instructor, and wellness is my passion. My show is a combination of many life experiences that will feature various topics and guests to help enrich one's mind, body, and soul on your pathway to healthy living. The show will also air on my Facebook page, Wellness with Nancy Lombardo, where my motto is protecting and serving your well-being. And I'm so excited to announce our special guest, Dr. Janet Piedilato. Janet is a best-selling author, a transpersonal psychologist, a healthcare consultant, and an ordained minister. Janet holds 2 doctoral degrees, one in biology from New York University and a second in transpersonal psychology from Saybrook University. Janet received her certificate in clinical training, wellness counseling, and body-mind consciousness, a certificate in Dr. Herb Benson relaxation response therapy from Harvard University, and a certificate in clinical training in hypnosis and psychological practice. Janet was privileged to study shamanism with Michael and Sandra Harner and holds the distinction of being the first woman practitioner to present shamanic ritual at the Harvard Divinity School Conference on Reinterpreting Shamanism. Janet has spent a lifetime experiencing and studying the value of altered states as represented by visionary dream and shamanic experiences. Janet seeks to offer her listeners and readers on an opportunity to see beyond the limitations of their waking senses. I love that. And I'm so excited that you have joined me this evening. Thank you so much for joining me, Janet. And
well,
hello.
Thank you for the invitation.
Well, the first thing I'd like to do is, first, you got to say you must be an overachiever with everything you've accomplished.
No, I think my problem is I really know I know nothing. So I keep studying, hoping that somewhere along the line, I can actually say I know something. So that's really my bottom line. It's the pile of ignorance grows ahead of me. So I just can't keep up with it. But you know what? It makes life interesting, Nancy.
Well, we talked during the week and last week also, and we came up with the topic, the myths of life journey, after going over several things, because we could talk about so much with you. But I would like for you to begin by telling our audience, maybe people who don't know you, a little bit more about yourself and what might I not have said during the introduction.
Okay, my work really is about healing, and it's about true healing. Most of us spend our life with the waking reality and the environment around us by virtue of our senses of sight and hearing, smell, taste, and touch. We navigate the physical world. We see and hear and act and react and communicate with everything that's around us. But few of us pay attention to the other half of consciousness. And that half is what I consider dream consciousness. And it is not just putting the head on the pillow, falling asleep at night, and going somewhere in dream, waking up in the morning and not remembering that you probably had 4 or 5 dreams during the night. But it's every time your consciousness shifts, and every 90 minutes, there's what I call the ultradian rhythm. We pop out of our beta consciousness, and suddenly, for even a few milliseconds, the unconscious rises to give us a gift. We're thinking of someone we may not have thought of for years. We're remembering something from the past that seems totally disconnected with our present. We may be working at a computer or at a job. We may ignore it, but if we start paying attention, we're going to begin to understand that there's far more to our life than just what we see in front of our eyes. It's inside us. Some people call it intuition. I call it the Sora Mystica, the sister of the soul that gives us that little bit of extra that we need to understand the world more completely. So that's what my work is really about, true healing, not the healing of the body for 5 minutes with some sort of disease that in the end of our life, we are going to pass through those gates to the Amduat, to the final resting place where we'll move on to another dimension. But it's the true healing of consciousness being made whole. We're really going to understand what life is about. It frees us from all our fears because we know that whatever is happening is fine. We will always be all right and we're never alone. But without that half, without the half of the unconscious rising in dream, then we're just stuck to the physical reality and we miss a lot.
You know, Janet, you're so humble and graceful in speaking about healing and that your mission is healing. I would like for you to share with the audience what you have been through in your own personal life and have come on the other side of being healed from what your tragedies, which are immense.
Well, first of all, I have to say, Nancy, I was born into an amazing family. I had a very wonderful, loving mother, father, and 3 wonderful older brothers who always treated me like a little princess. So I began life beautifully. I was greatly supported and loved. And then I met my husband, who I still absolutely adore. He is the love of my life. And we had 2 beautiful children, a daughter, Jeanette, and a son, Ignatius. But then life brought me to the other side. And my daughter developed leukemia. At age 5, she passed at age 10. And my son had aortic stenosis. He died in his 20s. And only now it's going to be 7 years ago, my husband died of a massive brain bleed. He was gone in 40 minutes. So my family of my husband and my 2 beautiful children all came into my life, graced my life. I could not have asked for more, but they were asked to go home before me. And so I am here surviving it, yes, and saying to each and every one of you, if we really want to say we've lived life fully, then we need to see both sides. We need to have the greatest of joys and to understand what the sorrows are as well, because they all pass. And in the end, it's the healing that will bring us over to the other side and free us from all fears. People often tease that they like to come on pilgrimage with me, that I could probably walk through a minefield and nothing would happen. And it's true, because I'm not worried about anything, because I know everything really is all right. My beloved is on the other side. He's not gone anywhere where the millions of people who were ever born on earth have gone. We all will go to the other side, but we need to be here to serve. We're all part of this wonderful manifestation of the cosmos. And if we understood that we sit in consciousness, we're all part of one another, then we would do unto others the way we want them to do to us. There would be only the sharing and the helping to one another. We would all be healed. So yes, I feel very grateful for everything I've had in life. And I'm not bitter on anything. How can I be? I had a beautiful childhood, and I had the most amazing romantic husband, as well as these beautiful children. Nothing lasts forever. So
how long do you feel like it took you to get through that, to be able to see the other side of that?
Well, I was very lucky, Nancy. When my daughter had leukemia, at the very end, I was sent home to give her chemo. And I didn't want to disturb her day. We knew that, unfortunately, she didn't have time left, but I wanted to make the days as pleasant as possible. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, I would wake to connect her to the IV with her chemotherapy. But I wasn't given a chaser, which meant that I had to stay up for 40 minutes while that drug went in, and then release, flush her, and let her go to sleep. But I would kneel on the floor. I grew up in a very religious family, and the Franciscans were in and out of our home. I still love them dearly. And they taught me to say the rosary in a very special way that I understand today was just a mantra. They said, just ignore the fact that you've got different prayers that you're told to say. Just pick one that you like and just touch those beads and say it over and over and over. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, kneeling on the floor, saying my mantra over and over, suddenly I went somewhere. And where I went was in the ceiling of the room. And I saw myself kneeling by my bed with my daughter in it. And I heard a voice. And that voice said to me, do you remember? You agreed to this. And I will tell you, when I was up on the ceiling, I absolutely not only remembered, but I knew it was absolutely all right, unquestionably all right. It was as though I was being told, you know, your daughter is going to the park and you're going to go later. Is that all right? And yet they said, and I didn't see anyone, this was purely auditory. You do remember that she is going to pass. And I said, yes, and it's fine. But then I would be washed down to the floor and think, what type of a mother am I that I agreed to this? But it happened over and again. The chemo began in September. She passed away at the end of January. And after she passed, I had no question in my mind that this was actually meant to be, that I had agreed to it. And I was at peace. I was helping most of the people around me who were grieving because I knew it was all right. Before my son passed, I was also told that his mission had been complete, that whatever he came to do, didn't want to agree to it, but I knew it. And I had been told as a young woman that I had made an agreement to be a bodhisattva. Now, I don't know if you know what that means.
I don't.
It means that you have agreed to allow everyone you love to go home first before you go home. And I remember being in my 20s thinking, yes, so that would be something I would agree to. Well, it was a very romantic notion in the age of 20s, but I was in my 30s then, certainly when Jeanette passed, a bit older when my son, and of course with my husband. But I'm convinced, I know that this was all a plan, and I know it was what I agreed to. So, but look at what I've been given. I've been given the very heights of joy and love. And yes, I understand what suffering is. And when I do private therapy with people who are grieving, people who have cancers, people who have lost someone they loved, or who are very confused by the sorrows that have fallen upon them, each sorrow is a gift. And it's a gift that opens you up, because it generally will stop you from just playing in life and ignoring the important part. You'll ask the question, why? Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is my incarnational role? It's a gift. Every sorrow is a gift. If we allow it to open us up, it opens the heart more greatly so that we can see. And when we begin to see, there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. So I really have to say I've been very lucky in that there was never any bitterness. And I won't say there weren't any tears. Of course there were, and I still miss them greatly. But I know it's temporary. I'm not going to be here forever, but I need to be here to do whatever it is that I'm supposed to do. And to that, I'm devoted.
I can only imagine that you give great comfort to the clients that you counsel, for sure. I like what you said. I've never thought about that. When me and you were talking, we said we were put together for a reason, for sure. We both come from Catholic backgrounds, and we're both Italian. You're talking about the rosary as a mantra, and especially being yoga. I've never thought of that and you're exactly right about that. That makes perfect sense as the mantra and over
It's
and
a
over
mantra,
again.
and I find that a lot of people come to me. I'm an interfaith minister, and they come to me that they've left organized religions. And I understand that. They're seeing the negativity, they're seeing with the man-made rules that don't make any sense, but they need to find something. And it's interesting because in the work that we do together, they find that something, and it doesn't have to be in an organized religion. And there is the sanctuary inside. And when that voice starts rising, they really know they're not alone, and they know it's all right. That they don't have to ascribe to a particular Quran or a Bible or whatever. It's fine if they can, but if they can't, and we have so many that can't do that, they need to find their way. All roads lead to the center. So, I mean, I embrace every one of them, and I say every one of them has right and wrong in it. Nobody is perfect these days, folks. Just appreciate that, and allow each person to find their own path. It's like with healing, and with whether it's medicine or Ayurveda or herbs or whatever particular medical treatment you seek, everyone can help someone. None of them is fully right. None of them has all of the answers, but they all have some of the answers. And we just hope that it's the right person. Albert Schweitzer once said, he told a story to Norman Cousins from the New York Times. Norman Cousins goes to visit Albert Schweitzer, the great white doctor in Africa. And he says to him, "Oh, Dr. Schweitzer, I'm so happy that you've brought Western medicine, into this area that's so rural." And Schweitzer turned around and said to him, "Tomorrow morning, I'm going to send a car to pick you up, and I'd like you to see something." So they bring Norman Cousins to the middle of a clearing in a forest. And there's a shaman in the middle of the clearing, and he's shaking his rattles, and, he has all sorts of bags of herbs, and he's giving some people the herbs, and others he's pointing to Dr. Schweitzer to say that's where they should go. And Schweitzer looks at Norman Cousins and he says to him, "You see, he and I are doing the very same thing. We're connecting to the healer inside the patient, and it takes the right connection." And certainly Dr. Jung said that, Carl Jung as well. If a patient meets the right analyst, that analyst will be able to work with them magnificently. I always have the prayer, don't let anyone come to me that I cannot help. I don't want them to waste their time with me if there's someone else out there that can help them better. And it is the place that I think every healer should be. There are people we're going to work with that are going to work well. And then there are others we need to send on their way because someone else is meant to help them better. But it is all about healing and about humility, about knowing we don't know everything. We need to have that space. Otherwise, we're not going to learn anything new.
I love that a lot. One other thing I just wanted to make a quick mention of that I found interesting with you when we were talking, the name Iggy and Ignatius, because I told you that was my grandfather's name, and it's such an unusual name and an old name, and I thought that was very interesting. Your husband and son?
My son was Ignatius, my husband was Ignacio, and of course, to me, it's a very strong name.
Oh,
it's
yes.
a powerful name, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And my son very much was shamanic and inherited all of his mother's psychic abilities, but he looked like my handsome husband, which was fine. My daughter, unfortunately, went so young. There wasn't very much that we really knew. I mean, at 5 years old, she was already hooked up to an IV most of the time, but just a little sweetheart and like a little angel. I mean, never complained about anything, Nancy. Never, ever complained. This child certainly was a gift. She was just a wonderful child, and so was he. He was an environmental major. Basically graduated with honors from UVM, and they have rooftop gardening. That was part of the designs of his honors thesis.
That probably wasn't even popular back then, was it?
It wasn't popular, no. And this was he died in 2007. So it was before that, I think 2001. And certainly nobody was doing it, and this was something that Ignatius was involved in. The Temenos where I live now, we were both going to work together on organic gardening. He worked with a gentleman who was doing the work with the living machine, and we were going to do a living machine here. His name was Todd. So many things were developed, and it was like, why did he have to pass? It would have been wonderful. This property could have been the environmental sanctuary that I planned for it.
And look what's going on with organic gardening now. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, no, it's huge, but it wasn't when he majored in it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Not at all.
Just for everybody that's watching us live, would you explain what you told me before we went live about your background?
Which part of it?
The doors and just what it is.
Oh, okay. All right. This is the Gaia Anderson Museum in Old Cairo, and behind me, you're only seeing the facade of one of the homes. They date to the 11th and 17th century, and behind them is the oldest mosque in Old Cairo. What's interesting is that none of this would exist if it wasn't for Gaia Anderson, an Englishman who went to Egypt, fell in love with the antiquities, and as they were demolishing these homes around the mosque, he asked if he might be allowed to live in these two. They're joined by a bridge, and he would leave his collection of all of the beautiful Egyptian antiquities that he collected in there. And today we can go in and we can visit. I chose it because there are two doors, and each one of us has two doors into the unconscious, into dreams. And I use the terms that are taken from Homer. And Homer talks about one gate that leads to dream is the gate of horn, and it's the gate of truth. And the other gate is the Walter Mitty gate, and in plain English, but it's the gate of ivory. It's the gate of deceit. This is when we can sit, a little girl sits and she dreams of going out with some sort of an actor. And she has this imaginal event and it's fictitious. But when we have a dream that maybe tells us something important about ourselves or something that we're missing in every day, that's a real dream. Now, what's more important even is once we're inside these two homes, said they were joined by a bridge. Our waking and our dream consciousness are joined by a bridge. So to me, it's the space that I begin every week when I do my classes. And I love it because it has so much connection with a metaphor for our own consciousness and our own healing. But it's a great place if anyone gets to go to Egypt, the Gaia Anderson Museum in Old Cairo.
I love that. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful behind you for sure. Okay, I got a big question for you. What is it about life that you believe to be a myth?
Oh, well, it's not life itself that's the myth. What it is that we believe, certainly, that we're here walking on a physical plane, and everything that happens to us has to be something that we see, hear, touch, smell, or feel. And that is the great myth, because in fact, more goes on in the unconscious that we're unaware of. And if we look at the ancient myths, like the myth of Osiris, those of you who are familiar with it, Osiris, Isis, Set, Horus the Elder, and Nephthys were 4 gods and goddesses, 5 rather, that were born on the 5 days between one year and the next. I love it because in Egypt, when 1 year ended, it was 360 days. They had 5 epigomenal days where the great gods were born. And this makes sense. They're born outside of time and space. The same way that you and I live in time and space. But when we travel in dream, there are no boundaries. We are outside of time and space, which is why we can see events from the past, or we can see events from the future, because there really is no future or past. It's all present outside of time and space. So here we have these gods that are born outside of time and space, and 2 are given the fertile land on the Nile, and 2 are given the land. It's Nephthys and Set that are given the raging hot desert land, and not much grows there. And it's Isis and Osiris that are given the fertile, beautiful land along the Nile. So Set is obviously jealous of his brother Osiris. This is where the Bible story comes in of Cain and Abel. So Set is making a sarcophagus for his brother to try out. Now, most of us might look today and say, if we give a party and the coffin is the gift, nobody's going to want to get in that coffin. Our society doesn't understand death. But the Egyptians understood that death was moving into the mansion of millions of years. And so the reason why we have so much that's left in Egypt, that's all about the tombs and the burial places that are so magnificent. In fact, Carl Jung on his visit to Egypt asked why they didn't see any of the regular homes. And someone mentioned to him, well, you only live in a home for a very short time, but eternity is where you really want your beautiful home. And they were all interested thus in a sarcophagus. So his brother gets in, Osiris gets in the sarcophagus. He's nailed in it. This is you and I in consciousness that are in the sarcophagus of the body. I'm not my body. My name isn't even Janet. My mother gave me that name. And yet when I was 4 years old, sitting watching her paint, she showed me a picture of myself as a baby. And I remember looking and saying, that's not me now. And what am I now? And then I went through her and my brothers, and I decided that day, I was just visiting these people. They were wonderful. I didn't know where I really came from. And I didn't know my name because I certainly existed before I was that little fat baby that I was looking at in the picture. So if we look at ourselves with this myth and say, we're in the sarcophagus, and then Set goes one step further. When Isis releases Osiris from the sarcophagus, Set finds him and cuts him up into 14 pieces and throws him all over the known world. Think about you and I. Our senses detract us. They distract us all the time. We're constantly seeing something, yearning for something out there, wanting something, hearing something. It's in the quiet and it's in the dark that the stars shine the most brightly. So when we go into that meditative state, when we go into the state of sleeping, when we have a lucid dream, everything is blocked out. We're outside of time and space. And the Egyptians knew this. They had the image of an open eye with feet, the hieroglyphs representing dream. And dream was not a verb. It was a noun. It was a place you went and something happened. And think about it. When people talk about their dreams, they begin by, I was somewhere and someone was with me and something happened. Well, yes, absolutely. But then that's another myth, because what you see in the dream is not the whole truth of the story. The same way that Isis and Osiris put into a sarcophagus, chopped up into pieces. Well, that might be a story to sit around a campfire and tell, but then it's just nonsense, isn't it? But what does it actually tell us? It tells us a lot more about ourselves. We are in the sarcophagus of the body. The senses are dismembering us. And it's a favorite expression that I use in my classes. We are dismembered, like the myth of Osiris, and we need to be remembered with consciousness made whole, dream and waking put together. That's what our life is about. Our life is about being remembered. It's a path every one of us has to take. And once we do that, there isn't any fear anymore.
My brain is going. Pff. So is it my understanding that the dream state and the waking state are one and the same?
They complement one another. They're part of one another. And unfortunately, because of our society, we tend to minimize the dream state. It's just a dream. Or I teach shamanism and someone says to me, but it's just my imagination. And I turn around and say, no. It is your imagination, not just, cut that word out. Imagination is a faculty by which we form images. And the image is the way that the unconscious speaks to us. It doesn't speak in a language. If someone relates a dream and they give me a whole paragraph of a language, that's their left brain working. That's not what the dream was. The dream is an image, because the same way we're going outside of time and space, that image opens up a doorway to something else. I dreamt of a little boy that I haven't seen for 50 years. He was in a class in grade school. Why am I dreaming of him? Well, a person that doesn't know better is going to say, oh, well, it's a boy. That's good. Their last name didn't change. Let me get on the internet. Let me find them. That's not usually what it's about. What was this boy like? And this is what I'll ask the person. What was he like? What do you remember about him? Just let a word come up. Oh, he was so patient. Okay, what did he do? We start moving into it. The doors open and they remember a particular incident with this person. And they remember something happening in a certain place. And then we mirror it to their life right now. And I usually get, oh, yeah, you're right. If I do something like that, it's going to help me to move forward. Or, oh, I'm doing something like that, and the way it stopped him, it's going to stop me. There are layers. I have tarot cards, and the one card that I have that didn't have much on it is an onion. And the senior editor sat with me when she was looking at the cards. And if she's listening, which she probably will at some time, she laughs when I relate the story, because she said to me, well, maybe you'd want to paint something else for that card. She said, because you have images with people and places, and the other cards are all filled with things. And this card has an onion. I said to her, that card is probably one of the most important cards of the whole set. I said, because you see, the onion has many layers. Yep. Just like a dream and just like a myth. So Isaac Newton spent half of his life looking at myths, because beneath them, he thought he was going to find what life was really all about. And he absolutely was right. So the onion, when you cut, you might have a sweet onion, and that might mean something nice. But how many of us cry when we cut open an onion because it isn't so sweet? And then we might look at that onion and somebody might say to me, no, I don't see an onion. I see a ball, and the ball is bouncing. Or I did a reading for someone and I looked and I said, I'm sorry, but this onion It's an apple. And boy, it's a rotten apple from a fairy tale, from Snow White with the fairy godmother. I said, and Snow White had to leave the house because obviously there was danger. She had to be removed from the castle. Well, this woman had to leave her childhood home with her father because there was abuse. And it was so interesting because the father had come up already, and this card was showing me what happened. But now an onion that looks like an apple at that instant. I drew the card. I should have known better, but the card, the intuition said to me, no, it's an apple. So it's the imagination, but the imagination, you wouldn't be able to get up in the morning. You wouldn't be able to have memory of where to go if you didn't have an imagination, because it's your ability to remember in images where something is. Where's the bathroom that I brush my teeth? Where's the coffee pot? So imagination is important, and it's not synonymous with falsehood. Yes, we can imagine silly things. We could go through the door of ivory, but we know better. And certainly those of us who try to develop an understanding go through the layers of dream. And what's revealed and what helps people is absolutely amazing. It's true healing.
For those who may not know you, you are known as the dreamer. Yes.
Yes.
I think you said on your mortuary, you even have it.
I have it written. I have a gravestone in the ground already. I'm kind of like an old monk. They always lived with a gravestone with their name on it. And under my name, it says dreamer.
Dreamer.
Says
because you are pretty much an expert in dream analysis and interpretation. And you see it far different than I think most people do, because you've been able to see into it and rely on so many other things that those of us that haven't been able to tap into it like you have. But you said this has been going on for years.
Ever since I was a child. My oldest memory is a dream. And it was a lucid dream because it was light. It had to be about 7 o'clock at night. And that's the time I always had to go to bed, even in the summer. So I remember it being light, but I remember it. And even as I think about it, I mean, it's so vivid in my mind. So I was just lucky. You know, dreams were they were very natural to me. In fact, I was a pre-med student when I basically met Stan Krippner, who was the great dream guru, and he still is. Stan is wonderful. And it was through Stan that I was in an honor seminar doing dream work and studying parapsychology along with my pre-med studies. I mean, it did not seem to be analogous to what you'd expect a pre-med student to be, but I had all those experiences and I wanted to understand them better. And I'm still working toward it. And dreams really are a major part of my life. I wouldn't be healed if it wasn't for the dreams. I mean, I'm on the floor giving chemo and I'm on the ceiling seeing something,
right?
And it's not something anybody taught me. It was part of who I was and who I remain.
What advice would you have for the many, many people that are out there right now struggling with grief and loss? Definitely
to look toward the dreams. And if in fact you can't remember your dreams, what I tell people to do initially is, get your telephone. There's usually chimes on it to wake you up. If you need to get up at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning, put your alarm clock chimes, something gentle, to wake you up about an hour and a half before you really have to get up. And then stay in the bed, don't hop out, and ask yourself, where was I? What do I remember? Do it very gracefully, because when we wake up, we're in a state called hypnopompnia. We're coming out of dream, but we're not quite in beta consciousness yet. If you don't remember, then make it up. Get a book on the side of the bed and
really?
Say,
just make it up?
Oh, make it up.
Huh.
And I had a gentleman who was an architect engineer, and he came to me and he never remembered his dreams. He was grieving over the death of his wife. And I said, all right, here's what we're going to do. You're going to make up a dream for me every night. He came in once a week. And I want them written down and we're going to discuss them. And we did this for a couple of weeks until when he came in and he said to me, well, didn't make up a dream for today. So I kind of looked and smiled. All right, Al, what do you have? He said, I actually had one now. It's as though you're asking your unconscious to come up to help you to remember, and you begin to remember. But even those dreams that you make up. Now, when I say make up a dream, I don't mean sit there an hour and try to orchestrate what you want this dream to be. I mean, really be spontaneous about it. I had a dream last night. Where am I? Well, all right, I'm at my grandpa's house now. I see myself. I'm sitting in a high chair and he's given me a part of the turkey, always gave me the turkey leg. I was only 4 years old. Now, I didn't have to think about that, Nancy. Immediately, that's what came to me. All right, so I also said what we were doing. We were eating. It was a feast. Everybody was at the table. So what is this telling me right now? So we look at it and say, all right, all the ancestors are there at your table, and there's food. And when there's food, it's the food of the soul. And they're telling you, like they're probably telling everybody listening, you are not alone. That table is the table of eternity, and it's beyond time and space. They are always there. We are right now trapped in a physical body, which is fine. We all agreed to come. But if you do that, you're going to remember a dream. And if not, you can get involved in a waking lucid dream during the day. There are classes on shamanism. I mean, I teach them myself. There are classes. I teach people how to have that waking lucid dream during the day. When you're completely awake, you've got soft music, you've got a voice that leads you, a door that opens, and then you start telling me what you see. And you believe it or not, it's the unconscious that's guiding you because you're seeing mental imagery. And those mental images are so important. So don't forget the fact that if you only are paying attention to what's in front of your eyes, you're only half awake. And that means you're only half alive. Don't you want to be fully awake?
I like that.
I do.
Did you not say that you've wrote down thousands of your dreams?
Oh, I have, absolutely. And I mean, my doctoral thesis was an urtext of over 600 pages of dreams. So yes, absolutely. I dream, and every night there's a dream. I spend probably an hour or two every morning, because what comes in that dream initially is not what the dream wants to tell me. And I know that. So in the morning, it's written down. I keep an iPad by the bed. So I will wake up at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Sometimes we do have a dream every 90 minutes. So if we don't remember it, I often tell people, if you really want to remember the dream, big glass of water before you go to bed, or a cup of tea or something, you're going to wake up, and you usually wake up after the dream. So give yourself that minute and you're going to remember, and don't fall into the trap of saying, oh, this dream seems ridiculous, so I'm not going to bother to remember it. And don't fall in the trap of saying, oh, it woke me up, it terrorized me, it's frightening, I want to forget it. Believe me, some of those frightening dreams are good dreams. The only reason they came with fear, so that you woke up during it to remember it. And some of the dreams that people thought were so frightening were so healing when we talked about them and what they actually meant. So but dreams are like learning another language. It is a myth. Each dream brings a myth, and it's so important. It really helps you to see more clearly.
Can you explain to me what you mean by seeing beyond the limitations of your waking senses?
Yes. When I'm awake and I'm walking in the physical world, there are limits all around me about what I can see, about what I can hear, and about what I can understand and not understand. But when I'm involved in a dream, there are no limitations. I can be sitting at my computer, and for me, it happens quite spontaneously. And I'm somewhere else, and I see where I am. I know where I am. I mean, recently, it was a trip that I took to Père Lachaise Cemetery in France. I was there in a dream first. And certainly as a medium, you'll understand that two of the individuals who were in that cemetery with me were famous people that really don't have anything to do with my life. One of them is a great musician, and I heard the music and I asked some questions. And when I woke up, they were right on that he was there. The other one was an author, and I knew the novels he wrote, but I didn't know he wrote poetry. And he gave me a poem. And I looked it up the following day, and it was about the death of a daughter. I didn't know he lost a daughter. And it was about him going to the cemetery to visit her. I got on to the internet. I got myself a flight, and I got someone to bring me to Père Lachaise. And this gentleman said to me, he said, I've been coming here for years, I never had somebody show me so much in this cemetery. And I first saw it in the dream. And I had a list of everything I wanted to see. And this man hadn't seen half of it. I spent 2 days walking around. So beyond the limits, I had never been there before. And this happens frequently, where I will see something. I have a trip planned in September, and there's things that I've seen, and it's the reason why I want to go. And it usually is something about healing, for sure. And it's something that, once again, validates to me that what I see with my eyes is such a small amount of what I really am. And it certainly helps dealing with any grief that someone would have when they realize they're only seeing part of the picture. Life is a lot more, and the dreams have no boundaries, which is why you can see the past. I have 2 gravestones in my garden of remembrance here at Temenos, and those 2 stones are for 2 individuals that I saw so much of those lives. I don't claim them as past lives, but I saw a tremendous amount, and I honor them by having the stones remembering them, because they came forward to tell me something about their lives, which certainly jived with the life that I have now. I would not have seen that if I was just paying attention with waking consciousness.
I said, and you paid attention.
I pay attention.
Yeah,
Oh,
for sure.
I definitely pay attention.
So many of us just go, like you said, through our mundane lives and the mundane routines, and we're not seeing so much.
No, I mean, my husband was a sweetheart for one of them. We chased places in Europe, and the events that happened in my dream were not validated by what I was reading in books after. So I had to go to the places. On the ground, they were validated 100%. And you wouldn't believe. I sat in one place for hours because I was told by the books that the person I saw should have been married in this place twice. And I cried, and I said to my husband, I don't know why, but I feel like she never saw it. And he left me. I spent another hour or 2 there. And when I left, I walked by, it was a church, and I walked by a vacant lot next to it, and there was a small plaque on the ground, Nancy. And the plaque said that the original church was the church that was on that vacant land. The new church was built long after this individual died.
Oh, wow.
I was right. But the books said, they just mentioned the name of the church, like the church that existed. How do you explain that? You
Can't explain that at all. That's crazy.
No. And I went into another one where in the dream I had seen something Roman. I had seen a mosaic floor, and I had seen a Roman in it. And I also saw a burial, and I saw a burial in that church. But I read in the books that this individual was not buried in that church. They were found elsewhere and moved in the 1940s. So I had the historian of the town. I told her I was writing a book, and we went in, and I stood by that grave that was in the church. And I said to her, but I understand that, that she wasn't found here. She was found elsewhere. And she said to me, oh, yeah, she was behind the altar. She was found in that church. I was right. She wasn't elsewhere. Then we walk out, and she looked at the tower, and she said, you see the tower? There was a Roman temple under it. And of course, that's what I saw in my vision. So
Wow.
Not knowing anything about dreams, people realize we're connected because there is no time and space in the dream space. We can see and connect to past and to future because we're only at this one little part of time. I used to tell my husband, one of the reasons I studied so much was I said, when I die, I'm going to be sent back in time. And I would like to know something from this time to bring back in time that I might be able to help people with. And I mean, he used to laugh at me, but I said, it doesn't mean that we're going to go forward in time. We're going to pop out in many, many other dimensions. We are so much more than what the eyes present for us. We truly are. Life is a lot more exciting.
So what's your best advice you can give to people about living their best life right now?
I would live my life as though every moment was my last, because then I would be the kindest to everyone around me. I would make sure that I didn't wait to tell people that I loved them. and how much they meant to me in my life. And I wouldn't waste time on all the little bickering that individuals do, that they get angry about such silly things. If I thought that I didn't have a tomorrow, if people would act that way, every day would be perfect, because you would do exactly what is right. You wouldn't want to do anything that you would regret. And certainly to realize that what your eyes see is not always true. There's an illusion there. So it's like we're at the bottom of a mountain and we don't really have a panoramic view. Pay attention to those moments when something pops into the mind that's amazing and different and has something to tell you. Life is full of joy, even when it gives you sorrow. So understand that every moment is a gift. Don't waste them. Don't waste them.
I love that a lot. I love that very, very much. So we decided to do something a little fun, didn't we?
Yes.
Why don't you show the audience that are watching us here live? You have a deck called
I have a deck, and I don't know if does this show? I mean,
yeah, I can see it clearly. The Mystical Dream Tarot deck.
And I also, for those of you who want to do dreams and learn a little bit more about it, I don't know if this is showing.
That one's not showing.
Okay. Maybe the cover is too shiny.
Yeah, it was a little shiny.
Shiny cover on this, but it's not showing.
There it goes.
I have a book called The Dream Gate, and that's the fact that we have the cover that kind of opens up, and it's
I can see it now. Yeah.
Okay, it's got the bird on the top of it, but I had initially been asked to write a book on a dream dictionary. And I said a dream dictionary is very good for the person who wrote it on the day they wrote it. But every dream has images that change and shift along with individual people. I would rather write a book to teach you how to make your own dream dictionary. And that's what the Dream Gate is. It's a book to teach individuals how to begin to understand the images that rise in their dream. And of course, the other one, which is my Dream Tarot, this is the product of my dreams. So the images on these cards initially came in dreams. And although we have a full book that you can look at meanings, I would not have even bothered to write this because those meanings may not be the meanings for you. Each image is specific. For instance, my mother believed if she saw a spider, it was bad in her dreams. When I see a spider, it's grandmother Spider Woman. And she's telling me she's weaving something. Something is about to come, and just be open to it. A new gate is going to happen. There's new threads that are being woven on the tapestry of your life. I'm in the same family, and we had two different meanings. Did she right and I'm wrong? No one's right and no one is wrong. Everyone at the moment has something that has meaning to them. And that's what the Dream Gate teaches. And of course, my cards all came from that. So we're going to shuffle.
We decided you're going to shuffle and you're going to pull a group card for our coaches.
I'm going to pull a group card for everybody here. All right.
And your artistry on your cards are beautiful, just beautiful.
I thank you. All right. So what do we have? We have a card, and I'm not sure if you can.
Yeah, we can see it.
You can see it. All right. So it's a woman standing in front of a mirror, and behind her we have trees. We have birch trees. Now, I specifically didn't give you the name of the card. And those of you who read regular tarot cards conventionally, every card does have a name and you could read it conventionally. But I ask that you look at the image and you don't look at if it's the cups, if it's the pentacles. And so we have a woman looking at a mirror. And behind her are all the trees. And on the ground is red. For me, this card is perfect for what we've done, Nancy, because what it means is for each one of us to look at ourselves and to say, what is it that we have to pay attention to in our lives? Do we really need to spend our time, playing games, filling in every moment with nonsense? Or is it time maybe to stop and look at the gift of what life is and what its meaning is? People that come to me with diseases, and I deal with people with cancers a lot, they in the end will say to me, it really is a gift, because they would never stop and think about what life really means. And they're given that gift because the nonsense is wiped off. This card says that. It says to you, take a good look at yourself. Is what you're doing really serving you, or are you serving it? What is life really about? And of course, the mirror is going to reflect and say to you, where should you go next? So for each and every one of you, I would wish you the blessing of individuation, self-knowledge, and that knowledge is only going to come when you're fully awake. So open the inner eye, look toward the intuition, and understand that in the beginning, you're going to have to learn the new language. But it's amazing and it's wonderful, and it'll fill your days and open your mind and shine light on your future and help you to be stronger. You'll be empowered. It'll wipe away your fears.
What a beautiful, that pulled it all together. What a beautiful way. My first thing, of course, you said was reflection, and the white represented pure reflection, your pure reflection. Yeah. I liked that.
Yeah. But, and I mean, it just says, go for it, but look at the truth.
Yes.
And of course, that means that each one of us has to see, what do we have to get rid of about our lives? What is it that is not serving us? Is it an old philosophy? Is it a myth about ourselves? I mean, I have people that tell me, well, they can't lose weight. They're never going to be able to lose weight. Well, that's a myth. Let's work on it and let's see how we can make you do this. But we often make excuses for ourselves. We don't have time. And I'll say to people, no, you're not making time for that. Realize that, be honest with yourself. And of course, the same way we've got chains, it's the weakest link that's the most important. So if we want to be strong, we have to go for it.
The universe has a way of always giving us the right answers, for sure. I love that. So if anybody has any comments or questions they'd like to ask you, they can put it in the comment sections, and we'll answer those. Also, can you tell people how they can get in touch with you, your website?
Okay, my website is janetpiedilato.net. And so it's JanetPiedilato.net. And of course, even just Janet Piedilato online, you'll be able to find me. I'm quite, I'm there. I'm quite visible online, but it's on my website, and Eventbrite offers a lot of my classes because I do private therapy, dream work, as well as classes on Tuesday and Friday nights. We work with dreams, and people from all over the world come. I laugh because we're virtually together, but we've people from down under. They're beginning a new day. We're at night. People in Europe who are up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So it shows how we really can do this if we all come together and share. We can help each other heal.
And anybody can join these classes at any time?
Anybody can join these classes, yeah. They're ongoing. And as I said, people will pop in and they go on vacation, or they may leave for a while, they come back again. But it's a pilgrimage toward memory. It's all about being dismembered, hoping to be put back together again. And it's a waking dream. So if you don't dream at night, come and join us and have a virtual dream. And at the end, I always leave time. People will share and make comments. And we have a lovely group. We have a lovely group that does it.
Well, I can't thank you enough for joining me this evening, Janet. You are just fascinating. You're lovely. I know you've been so informative to so many people that'll watch this, and bless you for everything you do for everybody else. And thank you so much for joining me. Once again, this is Enlightening Your Way. My goal is to help enrich your mind, body, and spirit on your pathway to healthy living. Please visit our Lily Dale Assembly Facebook page often, where you can find everything that's going on here about Lily Dale. And I also post some pictures also that I hope will make you feel like you're a part of our home. Please also like my Facebook page, Wellness with Nancy Lombardo, and Instagram, nancy.k.lombardo. My name is Nancy Lombardo. I am protecting and serving your well-being. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and good evening to all of you. Thank you.